Hello folks, Zookstar1000 here, aka Mark, and I'm making my first ever video game battle video, where I take two games, compare them with each other, and see which one is the superior game. And today's competitors are Tomb Raider the original, and Tomb Raider 2 the sequel. Why? Well, both of these games have been considered by the majority of the Tomb Raider fanbase as the best of the series, so I'm going to look more in depth to see which one, in my opinion, is the best. And remember, if the game you were hoping to win does not win, then please don't throw a hissy fit just because you can't take a simple opinion. So anyway, before we compare these two great games, let's take a look at them first. Let's start with Tomb Raider 1. During the days of 1996, video games were bringing the third dimension into a whole new level, with games like Super Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Resident Evil, and of course, Tomb Raider. The game's story begins where the protagonist, Lara Croft, is requested by a businesswoman, Jacqueline Natla, to recover an ancient artifact known as the Scion from the underground tombs in Peru. However, after retrieving it, Natla's henchman, Larson, confronts Lara and tells her that Natla betrayed Lara in order to get the Scion, which turns out to be only a piece of the Scion. Thus, Lara goes on an adventure to collect the other pieces of the Scion before Natla does. The objective in most of the levels is the typical point A to point B objective. However, later levels will require you to do task and exploration objectives where you have to collect keys or items that will help you allow you to progress in the game. You'll also have to do a lot of puzzle solving, which requires a lot of brain power. As Lara, you can do a lot of acrobatic moves to help you in the game. Unlike other platformers where you can just run through the game, here in Tomb Raider, getting through the levels requires a lot of patience and timing. You can also use your guns to deal with any enemies that appear randomly. Most of the enemies are animals like wolves, bats, bears, lions, gorillas, and more. Along the way you can find more weapons which, unlike your pistols, will require a lot of ammo to use. You're also bound to come across deadly death traps which can be tough to dodge. There are other things you can collect like medical kits which you can use to heal if you're low on health. Well, that's all for Tomb Raider 1. Now let's look at the competitor. Following year after the success of Tomb Raider 1, Core Design has made the sequel, Tomb Raider 2. The story begins in a flashback scene where an army of Chinese soldiers are attacking a dragon trying to destroy the Great Wall of China. They succeed by taking an ancient dagger out of the dragon's chest. The dagger was then taken and locked up for centuries. In the present, Lara investigates the Great Wall of China to learn the truth about the dagger. Reaching the door leading to the dagger, she is confronted by an Italian mobster who tells Lara that she needs to take down an Italian mafia boss from Venice named Marco Bartoli, who is also after the dagger. Thus, Lara begins her second adventure. You still have your acrobatic moves and weapons from the original, but there are also new things added to the series. You now have the ability to climb, use flares to light your way through darker areas, and the biggest feature, you are now able to hijack vehicles, like motorboats in Venice, and my personal favourite, the snowmobile in Tibet. Most of all, the levels in Tomb Raider 2 have more combat and action than before, as you mostly fight thugs and Italian gangsters. As for the collectibles, well, there aren't many things in the game that are important to collect. The only things that are important to collect are small stone dragon statues. Each stone dragon in each level is coloured by silver, jade and gold. If you manage to collect all of them, you can unlock a bonus which features more health, weapons, ammo and more. Now this is why I call it an around the world adventure. Okay, now that we know what these games are, let's begin with the big part and compare these two games and see which one is better, the original or the sequel. Let's start with the designs. Tomb Raider 1's designs heavily focuses on its inspiration, in this case Indiana Jones. You'll be going through a lot of dark and dangerous places like caves, temples, underground prehistoric jungles, Egyptian tombs, and so much more. I have to say the levels in Tomb Raider 1 really scared me when I was a kid, because you don't know when an enemy is going to attack you until the scary music plays. Sure, other PS1 games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill are scary, but that's because they're survival horrors. They're supposed to be scary. Tomb Raider, on the other hand, isn't a survival horror at all, and it still does the job of scaring us. Tomb Raider 2's designs, on the other hand, differs a lot from Tomb Raider 1's. Instead of going through Indiana Jones themes, you now go through levels set in well-known countries which are China, Italy, and Tibet. I really like the designs of Venice because it gives the player a true feeling of Italy, and we would never get this kind of thing again until Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves. Another difference is that Tomb Raider 1's levels are set inside, and Tomb Raider 2's levels are set outside. My biggest issue with the levels in Tomb Raider 2, however, is that they don't have that dark and scary atmosphere from the original anymore. Except for the Opera House level, now that one was scary, so by now you can already tell I prefer the designs in Tomb Raider 1. Now let's look at some gameplay elements. Well, one major complaint I have with the original Tomb Raider is that in order to save your game, you need to find a floating blue diamond. Tomb Raider 2, on the other hand, all you need to do is just go to your inventory and save your game from there, and when you die, you return to the last position you saved your game. This is without a doubt the biggest improvement within Tomb Raider 2. Looking at the gameplay more, battling animals in Tomb Raider 1 was pretty intense, but in Tomb Raider 2, not only do you still fight some animals, but most of the enemies you will encounter are Italian mobsters and thugs. This is really action-packed for a Tomb Raider game, minus the fact that an enemy can still shoot you even if you're not close to them. As for the boss battles, I must say the bosses in Tomb Raider 1 were more appealing and more memorable than the bosses in Tomb Raider 2. One thing I have to ask is, why the fuck do you battle a skateboarding kid in the first game? But on deciding on who had the better final boss, I have to say Tomb Raider 2, because it was intense to battle Marco Bartoli as a dragon, but battling Natla in her demon form was pretty scary though. But to be honest, Tomb Raider 1's gameplay had more of a feel of tomb raiding than Tomb Raider 2, so it's a tie for me. Now we look at the stories of these two games. Well, let me just get this out of the way. I was totally unimpressed with Tomb Raider 2's storyline. Why? Well, most of the scenes in the game were boring and uninteresting, and they didn't give you any reason why you should give a damn about the story. For a game that's supposed to have action and adventure, I would at least expect some interesting things in the story. Also, the character development was really poor compared to Tomb Raider 1, which made it less memorable. But the biggest disappointment when it comes to characters is the villain, Marco Bartoli. I know a lot of people like this villain, but to me, the character development of this guy was just lazy. He's just your typical Italian mob boss who wants power. Nala from Tomb Raider 1 was definitely a much better antagonist. Even defeating Marco as a dragon at the end doesn't give you the full ending. You have to kill Italian thugs again at Lara's mansion before you can get the ending, which really was pointless if you ask me.
Come on, hurry up! Got ya! Finally! Right, what's the ending?
Don't you think you've seen enough?
That's the ending? Oh Christ. Don't look! Don't look!
Yeah, well, let me put it this way. That ending was fitting for Lara herself, but not for the game's storyline. But anyway, I have to say Tomb Raider 1 had a more interesting story. You can argue that it's similar to Indiana Jones, but at least it had its own twists. And finding out that Natla was the third ruler of Atlantis was really a shocker. Most of the characters in the game were really part of the story and had more memorable character development. And Tomb Raider 2 on the other hand, didn't. Okay, now let's head over to the results.
Winner of the design category is Tomb Raider 1. Winner of the gameplay Tomb Raider 1 wins.
That's right, in my opinion, I believe that Tomb Raider 1 is indeed the better game. Why? Well, let's be honest, for its time in 1996, the game was groundbreaking with not only its scary atmosphere, but also for its adventurous platforming feel that we may never see in the Tomb Raider franchise ever again. This game is also one of my favourite PS1 games of all time, and the best Tomb Raider game out there, in my opinion. I'd be a liar if I said Tomb Raider 2 is a bad game. Well, I like the game, but the mediocre, forgettable story just nearly ruined it for me. keyword being nearly. Most importantly, Tomb Raider 2 had less platforming and puzzle solving than Tomb Raider. I think both games are great, but it was Tomb Raider 1 that made the Tomb Raider series well known on the PlayStation. My rating for Tomb Raider is a 9.4 out of 10, meaning awesome, and my rating for Tomb Raider 2 is a 9.0 out of 10, meaning great. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed my last ever video of 2010. I gotta say, 2010 has been a swell year for me, and here's to hoping 2011 will be even better. So keep up to date on what I'm gonna make for future reference. See y'all in 2011!